no property management since the tenant are responsible for all the repairs, all the replacements, and the structure of the building and common area maintenance. It's pretty much mailbox money for the landlord. Hey, what's up fam? We are going to talk about the multi-tenant and single tenant showdown. We will give you the inside scoop on things that really nobody talks about. So come check us out. So here we are, the battle against multi-tenant versus single tenant. Let's get started. So you're trying to invest into your first triple net multi-tenant shopping center or single tenant property, and you're trying to ask yourself, which one is better? Is it better to invest into a single tenant, or is it better to invest in a multi-tenant property? The pro in a multi-tenant is you will have long-term tenants providing revenue into the shopping center, and they will pay for the property's expenses. If you have 8 tenants and if 3 tenants leave, you still have 5 tenants covering your expenses. The con is that all your mixed tenants are also mixed square footage. If you have one tenant that decides not to renew their lease of 5,000 square foot or higher, these spaces are much harder to lease, and your space could stay vacant for a long time, decreasing your profits and maybe causing you to lose money. This will also make it difficult to refinance if the property is not profitable. But it's great to have multi-tenants because you have a variety of income coming in from all directions, and also tenants create synergy to your shopping center. The goal is to lease to national tenants that will attract new prospects to your building, and those prospects would like to be next to your national tenant. Now let's talk about single tenant and what the pros and cons are. The pro of a single tenant is if you are able to lock in a national tenant or a strong local brand that has strong financials, they will be able to corporate guarantee the lease and sign a 10 to 15 year lease, versus in a shopping center they typically will get 3 to 5 year leases. The con is if or when they leave, you will have an empty building not making any revenue, with you paying all the operating costs. And due to the 10 to 15 year commitment on single tenant, it's much harder to find a tenant. What I recommend on both cases is to have a 180-day renewal policy in your lease. The tenant must provide you 6 months in advance if they're going to renew their lease. This way, on the first day they decide not to exercise their lease, you have 6 months to renegotiate with them or market to a new tenant, sometimes for a higher rate. So what about financing? Lenders love multi-tenant because of the diverse portfolio that the multi-tenant brings. They know that if someone leaves, you still have income coming in. However, you will need to check your lending agreement very, very carefully. Institutions lend based on debt service coverage ratio, also known as DSCR. They want to know that you have plenty of income to cover the expenses and the loan. They can add a clause that if a tenant leaves and it decreases your debt service coverage ratio below the lending agreement guideline, that you will need to physically come out of pocket to keep your debt service coverage area throughout the loan. These are not all lenders, so make sure that your attorney reads the details. Single tenant properties are great because if you can find a long-term national prospect with a corporate guarantee, a lender will basically approve you with a letter of intent from a national prospect. They pretty much serve you as a sponsor for your first deal, or your second or your third. So you are one relationship away from finding your next property. What I recommend is keep your tenant relationship close so you can be part of their expansion. And now that we're discussing tenants and contracts, the tenant behaviors or requests differ from single tenants and multi-tenant prospects. For example, when negotiating with a prospect in a multi-tenant, they might request for tenant improvements, also known as TI. They are requesting an incentive in leasehold improvements to make the space their own theme. With the right tenant and the right financials, this can be left for negotiations. But just remember, it's just another expense you might not need to enter into a single tenant prospect. On multi-tenant, your landlord responsibilities will be the structure of the building, the walls, the roof, plumbing, electric, versus a single tenant, you will enter into an absolute triple net lease where they will cover most of those items. Most multi-tenant properties, you will need to hire also a property manager to manage all your tenants, common area, city ordinance, just another expense. Versus a single tenant, there is no property management since the tenant are responsible for all the repairs, all the replacements, and the structure of the building and common area maintenance. Why would they do this? Well, national tenants need to keep a great operational reputation and they prefer not to leave that in the hands of the landlord, so they enter into an agreement where they handle everything. It's pretty much mailbox money for the landlord. So there's no right or wrong answer on what is best. The best question is what is the best business for your model and how you're going to market to your tenants. And with that being said, let's talk about tenants and why landlords have such a hard time finding tenants. Check that out in the next video.
I gotta elevate.